I'm here in Behindrannagar together with Dr. Shirley Haywood. She's a gynecologist in our current project where we build a Fistula-Klinik. Could you maybe introduce yourself very briefly, and how did you end up to be a gynecologist first, and how did you end up here in Behindrannagar?
Okay, well, I'm Shirley Haywood. I trained in the UK as a gynecologist, and I got my membership exam in 1985. I became a doctor because when I was about 16 or 17, I read a missionary prayer letter which talked about medical needs in Nepal. And that really spoke to me so much that's why I applied to do medicine. So I always had Nepal in my heart, but actually after I qualified and then became a gynecologist, I did go first to Pakistan and then to Papua New Guinea, and finally got the chance to come here in 2003, and I've been working here in Behindrannagar ever since. I came with the role of being a gynecologist to support the development of women's care in this part of the country, which is the less developed part of the country. And it said I should be trying to help develop more places to do caesarean section, and I taught people to do prolapse operations, and I was also told to look for a need. Now, in the other countries I worked in, I saw fistulas. And when I came here, I said, do you have fistulas here? Because it's a developing country, I would have expected it. And I was told, no, it's not a problem here, we don't see it. But then gradually going out to rural areas, whenever we did an outreach camp, we would find 1 or 2 fistulas. And they hide, they're hidden. And it's not known in the health system, and it wasn't known in the government that actually there were women suffering from obstetric fistulas in Nepal.
And at what point was that? At what year?
Well, I came in 2003. We saw the patients in camps, and in 2007 I saw a lady in a very remote part. There was no way we could send her to Kathmandu where we knew there was operations. So then I thought, I want to learn to do fistula properly for difficult cases so that I can do these ones that turn up. And then I went to learn in Ethiopia in 2008, and from 2009 we've done a camp every year. We just started off with 10 patients, but then we thought people kept coming and contacting us, so then we tried a wider outreach, and in 2011 we had 56 fistula surgeries in 1 year. And after that, people around the country were saying, where did you get them from? And it seemed to be then that suddenly from 2011 the country seemed to start to wake up to know that there were more fistulas than they were aware of.
Maybe we can take a step back at that point. Could you maybe describe what a fistula actually is and how it actually affects the women?
Okay. A fistula is an injury. An obstetric fistula is an injury that women suffer through difficult childbirth. Basically, a fistula is a hole where there shouldn't be a hole. An obstetric fistula is a hole either from the bladder to the vagina or from the bowel to the vagina, which makes you incontinent. You cannot control your urine. It runs continually. The most common is the bladder one. And these women are now continuously wet. The urine never stops running. And that means they don't drink as much. Their urine smells stronger. It burns their skin. They get ulcers. They smell very bad. Some of them, the husbands leave them. Some of them have to sleep outside the house. They don't go into society. They can't go out to the bazaar. They don't go to the temple. They don't go to their friends and sit and talk. They don't go to women's groups. They're just totally lonely and isolated. And it happens because of prolonged labour, obstructed labour, where the baby is just lying wrong or just too big to come. And because historically most women in Nepal, and especially rural areas, deliver at home, they don't have anyone with skill there to tell them this is wrong, and they might be in labour for 2 days, 3 days. We've had them for 10 days. Or they might be in a very remote area. They might have the baby almost delivered and then it can't come out, and in a very sad state they get transported for a day or two to where there is a hospital where they can be delivered.
Because the infrastructure is so bad and so on.
It was so bad. It's getting better. There are more roads. There are more places that can deliver the baby by caesarean section. So it's much better than it was. But then we're seeing women who've been suffering for up to 45 years with a fistula. So from the past when there was really no facilities for them.
So that is something which is much more prevalent in developing countries.
It's much more. And there used to be fistulas in Europe and Australia and in America and whatever, and we don't see them now unless it's from cancer or an accident at surgery. You don't get people going in labour for that long without having help. Whereas here, there is the lack of the facilities, and there's also the feeling in society. The mother-in-law says, no, we stayed at home. You should stay at home too.
Okay. And besides the medical implication for the woman, it also has this social side you briefly talked about. So they fight a lot of stigmas and so on. So maybe let's go back to 2011, you said. You had these camps. And
we started them, the camp. Then we didn't have any... There was not much room. The hospital was a 50-bed hospital. We had all these contacts, so we had to put a big marquee up, a huge tent, and we had more people sleeping in the tent than there were in the hospital for these 56, and they were on camp beds in the tent. Then after that, as the hospital is developing, we were in a partially completed building for a bit. But the dream is then when you see people year after year who can't come when the camp is, or haven't got someone to come with them, or some reason, we want to be able to be available to give service when they can come, so that we can give a year-round service, and that the people that we know and have been in contact with for 4 or 5 years and haven't yet managed to come can then have a chance to get their treatment.
And that was the point you thought about, maybe if you could get a clinic.
Well, we started thinking about it in 2011, but it took a long time. It was a long journey from then.
It did. Okay. Now we're at this point, we're actually standing inside of the clinic, in the kitchen tract, because all the other one, as you maybe can hear, is still in construction, but almost finished.
Should be within a week or two.
Yeah. After that, the interior work will be done.
Yeah.
And we will probably start in September with the inauguration, maybe with the daily business already a little bit earlier.
Well, hopefully it'll happen a bit earlier so that we can iron out the wrinkles and... Yeah, well, we should use it. We've got it. We long to use it. I've been longing for this time.
Could you maybe talk a little bit about the capabilities of the center and where it's located? Because it's a special spot as well as a district or regional hospital now. Yes.
Well, the hospital had got plans to build from a 50-bed facility to build a 350-bed hospital.
You mean the regional hospital?
The regional hospital. And they've given us, within their grounds for this new building, they've given us the land to build the Fistula Centre on. And the building will belong to them, but INF will be running it at the beginning until we've trained up and built up a team. So we are nicely tucked in next to the main hospital, right next to what will be the new maternity block, so we can work together with them. And we've got 17 bed space, and we've got an operating theatre, which we can run 2 operating tables at a time. And we've got clinic rooms, we've got this kitchen, as you say, and dining area and place for relatives to stay. And we've got, a laundry. And we're going to be a training centre too, so we'll have, as well as an administrative office upstairs, we'll have a library and a computer room where people who come to learn, doctors and nurses, can also have access to internet and articles and books and learn about fistula as well, from the books as well as from the patients.
And what capacity will you have on this clinic?
For the clinic, with the beds that we have, we could easily handle up to 5 patients a week, because they stay for 3 weeks or so. So therefore, we wouldn't be a big number that way. Could you maybe
talk a little bit about the treatment? Because it's, as far as I know, not as easy as you think it would be.
No. Some fistulas every fistula is different. Every hole is different, and it depends on how damaged the bladder and the urethra, the pipe that you pass your urine through is. So some of them are very straightforward, and you can operate in half an hour and you can go away happy, this one's going to work and it'll be dry. And yet others where there's really severe damage and everything is completely disconnected, it can be 2, 3, up to 4 hours. Some are impossible to heal. Some are so damaged that even if you heal the hole, the woman is still they're unable to stop the urine coming from the bladder because the urethra is so damaged. And so there's a variety of different procedures and things that you can try and do, but there's a whole range of cases and things that we can do. So yeah, it's lovely when you get the easy ones because you feel, yeah, this is going to be good. Like this time we had 2 ladies came the same day to clinic, gave you that really sinking feeling, this is awful. But we got things together and so far they're doing well. Let's keep hoping and praying that they'll be healed and be okay. But it's difficult to know sometimes. But whatever happens, we've got a lady here who's come back actually her 5th time. So we don't say, until we get to the point where we say, or they say, okay, that's enough, we will give them the option to try and make things better for them.
Oh, okay. So. And could we maybe, as a last point, talk about the future and what you think the current situation of treatments of fistula is in Nepal and how it's developing? Because it's, as far as I know, one of the first centers in West Nepal which actually treats fistula.
This is the only centre in Western Nepal. There's been surgery in Kathmandu in Patan Hospital for more than 25 years that was started with a missionary working there, and then they got training and trained others. So that the Nepali team there have been doing fistulas for 25 years or more. And in 25 years, they did about 400 cases. So people who knew referred cases to them, but they didn't go out looking for people particularly. One of the things we did when we wanted to expand was we did an outreach training so that we were teaching health workers about fistula and what it is, and we've used radio. And so I think that's one of the reasons people didn't know there was the problem, because people didn't know there was treatment, didn't know what was wrong with them, and so they were stuck. Yeah, I think in the future our plans will be that we support them for 10 years, and we hope in that time to train the Nepali team and a Nepali surgeon who will continue this service here for the West. But there are now surgeons, there's 2 centres in Kathmandu, and there's another centre that's been doing it for several years in deren, in the eastern region. So they're east, but for the West, so far we're the only facility that there is for the 3 western regions.
Okay, thank you.